been selling my soul, working all day, overtime hours for bullshit pay.
Ain't that the truth? Working all them hours and it seems like it's never enough.
'Cause your dollar ain't shit, and it's taxed to no end. 'Cause the rich men, 'cause the rich men.
Ain't that the truth? Thank God for Oliver Anthony. And that's what I want to do real quick. I want to thank him for making this incredible, historic, generational changing song for 2023. I believe is going to be our anthem. And I want to thank him for making that video, because if it wasn't for him, a lot of you guys wouldn't see this channel. You guys came here because of the video reaction. And I really want to thank you for subscribing to the channel. I really, really appreciate it. And I made a promise to you guys that I would teach you about money and I would teach you why the dollar ain't shit. And that's what I want to talk to you guys about today. You know, when he was in those lyrics, I'm going to have a series. I'm going to break down lyrics of that incredible song, because he touches on a lot of things that I talk about on this channel, along with the people that are subscribed to me and the people that I listen to and you guys listening to this. He said something very interesting. Our dollars are taxed to no end. And he's right about that. Because once you get paid, what happens? You get taxed as soon as you get paid. And then every time you buy something, you get taxed. They get you coming and going, ladies and gentlemen. But there's one tax that a lot of people don't know about, and that's the hidden tax of inflation. I want you guys to do me a favor. I want you to forget everything you know about money and inflation. A lot of people think inflation means prices going up. That's not what it means. Okay, and we're going to talk about that today. So we're going to go through Milton Friedman's documentary he did, incredible documentary. Milton Friedman, for those of you that don't know, he's the grandfather of economics. He was one of the first people I ever heard talk about inflation, the real inflation. He breaks down in this documentary. We're going to go through that. Yeah, it's incredible what they have done and not taught us in school about money and everything else. It's just like the harder you work, the less you get. And I want to play this quick video from a lady that I think we can all feel what she's saying. Take a look.
I am so tired of feeling helpless as a parent. Yes, my kids are grown adults. My oldest is 28, my youngest is 25. And I thought by teaching them what I learned, which is you work hard, you get a good job, you're going to get the things in life that you need, right? Worked for me, why wouldn't it work for them? Because it doesn't. Because the world has fucking changed, all right? And now I feel like I see them struggling. And before my generation comes at me, yes, I understand struggling is a part of life. We all struggled. But there's a difference between struggling and drowning, all right? So we struggled and it was tough. But you know what? We made it. We knew there was a light at the end of the tunnel with our struggle. It seems like kids today, no matter how much they struggle, they just get further and further down the water into the drowning point, all right? When I was their age, I was making less than $10 an hour. And I could afford to live on my own. Now you have to be making six-figure salary to get a decent, tiny little place to live.
She's absolutely right. Absolutely right. The farther the generations go and the more money printing goes, and we'll talk about that more as the video goes, the worse it is. I live in Las Vegas, Nevada, and the homeless situation is crazy. I'm going to get back to this lady in a minute, but I want to show you a local news clip of what's going on here in Las Vegas, and I'm sure it's happening all over the country.
A significant rise in our local homeless population. That is the latest result from the Southern Nevada homeless census count, which was released this week. So what's causing the increase? 8 News Now reporter Sasha Loftus spoke with an expert and those living on the street. She joins us now live downtown with the latest.
Denise, we spoke with quite a few people living on the streets here in downtown Las Vegas today. Many of them say they're struggling with rising costs here in the city, and a lot say they simply have nowhere to go.
There's no way that I can afford a place to live here.
This man, who didn't want to share his identity, has been living on the streets in Las Vegas for just over a year.
A lot of people, you know, they just walk by you and they take a big loop around you, you know, thinking, we're not going to hurt you.
He shared a bit about the struggles he faces every day, from safety concerns to the blazing summer heat.
They finally did open heart surgery on me.
And lately, he's seen things get a lot more crowded.
I've seen a lot of new faces in the past year and a half.
According to the Southern Nevada homeless census count, about 6,500 people have been without a stable place to live in 2023. Last year, that number was just over 5,600. That's a 16% increase.
It's a lot higher than that, because that's the ones that are counting, that'll go there and try to get help and stuff like that, and actually go there and do the number, the head count and stuff like that. There's a lot of people that don't do that. They just don't want to be part of the system and all that. I think it's thousands and thousands more. And I'm sure you guys do too.
What we're seeing as far as the homeless is kind of a perfect storm.
Meredith Spriggs, Chief Kindness Officer for Caridad, says it's hard to pinpoint a reason for the spike, but a lot of it comes down to rising prices, a lack of housing, and federal funding.
The reason is inflation. That's what it all comes down to, ladies and gentlemen. It has nothing to do with lack of housing or anything. There's plenty of houses out here. There's plenty of empty houses, empty apartments, places to live. It's all about the hidden tax, inflation. And we're going to learn about that today.
There's this huge bell curve of individuals that aren't getting housing, that are faithfully checking in, that are just out on the streets and maybe getting worse and worse.
She encourages anyone who can to get more involved and volunteer, while those we saw on the street want others to consider how hard things may be.
It's very hard for them. You know what I mean? Again, I drive DoorDash. I'm a retired military. By the way, I'm not a Republican or a Democrat. I'm not on the red or blue team. I'm on the red, white, and blue team, the American team. I read the United States Constitution every day. I'm not for any of these sides, the Republicans or Democrats. Like he said in the song, rich men north of Richmond. It's all of them. You know what I mean? They don't have our best interests, ladies and gentlemen, and it's just going to keep getting worse and worse and worse. Let's go back to the other lady that was talking about her kids and how they're not making it, because I'm sure you guys can relate.
So what the fuck is going on, and how do we help them as parents? I told my son, all you have to do is work hard, go to college or join the military like I did. He went to college, got his degree, got a full-time job. He moved back in with me right when he graduated from college because he said, hey, Mom, as soon as I get a job, which was within 2 weeks of him getting out of college, maybe take me 2 months and I'll save up enough money for me to move out. Okay, cool. It's been 10 months. He has saved almost every dime and still can't afford to live. Why are one-bedroom studio apartments almost $2,000 a month? Why? Like, I just don't get it.
And that right there, that statement she made, is why I make these videos. I talk to people every day about inflation and the prices going up. People don't know why prices are going up. People don't know what inflation is. They think it's just prices going up. That's not what it is, ladies and gentlemen. It's the debasement of our currency when they print the money. And I'll get into that in the Milton Friedman piece. But they don't teach us this. They do it on purpose. We've been lied to, ladies and gentlemen. We've been lied to.
So I don't even think that there's even classes anymore. There used to be, upper class, middle class, lower class. It's literally turning into the ultra wealthy, and then everybody else is just poor. Like, that's what is happening.
She hit the nail right on the head, ladies and gentlemen. She's exactly right. There's only two classes now. It's the rich and the poor. And the middle class is getting poorer and poorer. The poor people are getting even poorer and poorer. And the rich are getting richer. You think that's on accident, ladies and gentlemen? It's by design. It's so funny. I read a book called Why We Want You to Be Rich by Donald Trump and Robert Kiyosaki. And this was in 2007. He talked exactly about this, about the money printing and why you need to buy silver and gold. This before Bitcoin came out. This is 2007. He talked about this. He said the rich are going to get richer and the poor is going to get poorer. He predicted this back then, and she's exactly right. That's what's going on, ladies and gentlemen. It's not on accident, guys. It's on purpose.
And then I told him, hey, when you turn 25, at least your car insurance will go down. Hell no, he turned 25 and his car insurance went up $150. I tell him, if you need health insurance, get a good job. He did, has health insurance. He has had a medical emergency this week. Had to go to emergency room twice. He had to go to the emergency room because he couldn't get anybody to see him with the health insurance that he had. Right? So he had to go to an emergency room. Now he's out money for that too. It seems like you can never get ahead. And then my daughter, I told her all you have to do because she wanted to buy her own house. My daughter worked 6 days a week, 12 hours a day to save up enough for this down payment. Finally got this house. She's paying double what I'm paying for my mortgage, but her loan was the same amount. And then her mortgage company, after she's already moved in, said, oh, by the way, we forgot to tell you that you need this type of coverage, which we forgot in the beginning. That's an extra $200 you've been paying a month.
Sound familiar, ladies and gentlemen? This is exactly why that song he made, Oliver Anthony made, is hitting home with everybody. It's resonating with all of us around this country because she's exactly right. Medicare is going up. Insurance is going up. Mortgage payments are going up because of the interest rates and the mortgage rates. And I'll talk about that in another video. Everything is going up. These kids, the farther you go along, the worse it's going to be, ladies and gentlemen. So let's get on to Milton Friedman's Understanding Inflation quick little documentary, and I'll be interjecting. And I'm telling you, this is back in 1980, I believe, or something like the early 80s. And I'm going to tell you guys, they do not want us to see this video, okay? So this is groundbreaking. Everything's facts. Get your pen and notepad ready, and let's dig on in.
century ago, this was a town of 10,000 people. What brought them here? Gold. If this were real gold, people would be scrambling for it. A series of gold strikes throughout the West brought people from all over the world, all kinds of people. They came here for one purpose and one purpose only, to strike it rich, quick. But in the process, they built towns, cities, in places where nobody would otherwise have dreamed of building a city. Gold built these cities, and when the gold was exhausted, the cities collapsed and became ghost towns. Many of the people who came here ended up the way they began, broke and unhappy. But a few struck it rich. For them, gold was real wealth. But was it for the world as a whole? People couldn't eat the gold, they couldn't wear the gold, they couldn't live in houses made of gold. Because there was more gold, they had to pay a little more gold to buy goods and services. The prices of things in terms of gold went up.
So what he's doing is he's laying the foundation of what inflation is, right? Gold is definitely very valuable, scarce. It's a precious metal. That's why we call it precious, because there's not a lot of it. But he's saying during the gold rush, when they found more gold, guess what that meant? It meant it cost more gold to buy the same items, because the items don't increase, the gold did. And it's the same thing that's going on today.
At tremendous cost, at sacrifice of lives, people dug gold out of the bowels of the earth. What happened to that gold? Eventually, at long last, it was transported to distant places, only to be buried again under the ground. This time, in the vaults of banks throughout the world.
So that's very important. He said the gold was buried in the vaults of the bankers, the central bankers, the government, and stuff like that. And nobody knows how much gold are in those vaults. We really don't. Gold is very valuable. It's very precious, but we don't know how much there is. And we stopped using gold as money. Remember, this video is in 1980. And in 1971, something very important happened. But what he's going to do now, he's going to walk you through the history of money, which is an exchange of value throughout history.
There's hardly anything that hasn't been used for money. Rock salt in Ethiopia, brass rings in West Africa, cowrie shells in Uganda. Even a toy cannon, anything can be used as money. Crocodile money in Malaysia, absurd, isn't it?
Isn't that crazy to think about that early in human history, we would use all those different monies for exchanging goods and services. But before those monies that they were just showing, we used to do barter. You know, one person would trade one cow for some chickens or whatever. But after a while, it's just like, man, I can't hold this fish because it'll go bad, and I really don't need any carrots right now. So they had to come up with a medium of exchange. And that's why those primitive things you saw. It's all about confidence. And if there's more of that said money that comes into that economy, the more those things are going to cost in terms of that money. And he's going to get more into that.
That beleaguered minority of the population that still smokes may recognize this stuff as the raw material from which their cigarettes are made. But in the early days of the colonies, long before the United States was established, this was money. It was a common money of Virginia, Maryland, and the Carolinas. It was used for all sorts of things. The legislature voted that it could be used legally to pay taxes. It was used to buy food, clothing, and housing. Indeed, one of the most interesting sights was to see the husky young fellows at that time lug 100 pounds of it down to the docks to pay the costs of the passage of the beauteous young ladies who had come over from England to be their brides. Now, you know how money is. There's a tendency for it to grow, for more and more of it to be produced, and that's what happened with this tobacco. As more tobacco was produced, there was more money. And as always, when there's more money, prices went up, inflation. Indeed, at the very end of the process, prices were 40 times as high in terms of tobacco as they had been at the beginning of the process. And as always, when inflation occurs, people complained. And as always, the legislature tried to do something. And as always, to very little avail. They prohibited certain classes of people from growing tobacco. They tried to reduce the total amount of tobacco grown. They required people to destroy part of their tobacco. But it did no good. Finally, many people took it into their own hands, and they went around destroying other people's tobacco fields. That was too much. And they passed a law making it a capital offense, punishable by death, to destroy somebody else's tobacco. Gresham's Law, one of the oldest laws in economics, was well illustrated. That law says that cheap money drives out dear money, and so it was with tobacco. Anybody who had a debt to pay of course, tried to pay it in the worst quality of tobacco he had. He saved the good tobacco to sell overseas for hard money. The result was that bad money drove out good money. Finally, almost a century after they had started using tobacco as money, they established warehouses in which tobacco was deposited in barrels, certified by an inspector according to his views as to its quality and quantity. And they issued warehouse certificates, which people gave from one to another to pay for the bills that they accumulated.
Amazing, isn't it? That's what's happening today. We print a bunch of money. He'll talk about that in the next segment. It's crazy. Tobacco was money for these people back then, right? And it was currency. It was money. And they would grow it. And the more tobacco was in the economy or the system, the less and less it became valuable because it wasn't precious. That's why gold was so valuable, because it was so hard to get. But when more gold came in, the less valuable it became. And that's what it is. Prices don't go up, ladies and gentlemen. The currency or the value of that money, said money, goes down because there's more and more in the system. Let's see what happens today with the quote unquote money we have in the system today.
These pieces of green printed paper are today's counterparts of those tobacco certificates, except that they bear no relation to any commodity. The fact is that most people enjoy the early stages of the inflationary process. Britain, in the swinging 60s, there was plenty of money around. Business was brisk, jobs were plentiful, and prices had not yet taken off. Everybody seemed happy at first. But by the early 70s, as the good times rolled along, prices started to rise more and more rapidly. Soon, some of these people were going to lose their jobs. We have got it made. The party was coming to an end.
We're on top of the world. That's so crazy to see those people in those outfits back then. I was born in 1975, so I remember some of that slightly. I was a little kid. Leave a comment in the comment section below if you're old enough to remember those outfits, and if you wore those outfits, let me know.
The story is much the same in the United States, only the process started a little later. We've had one inflationary party after another, yet we still can't seem to avoid them. How come? Before every election, our representatives would like to make us think we're getting a tax break. And they're able to do it while at the same time actually raising our taxes because of a bit of magic they have in their kit bag. That magic is inflation. They reduce the tax rates, but the taxes we have to pay go up because we are automatically shoved into higher brackets by the effect of inflation. A neat trick. Taxation without representation.
Ain't that something? That's exactly what Oliver Anthony talked about. You get taxed and this, that, and the third, but then they say, oh, we're going to lower the taxes. No, they won't. They'll tell you they'll lower the taxes, but then they'll print a bunch of money, and AKA it's counterfeiting, to be honest. Because me and you did it, we go to jail. They print a bunch of money, and guess what? They take that money and spend it and overspend it on things that we don't even vote for, AKA sending money to Ukraine, giving away this money for woke stuff. You remember the $1.7 trillion bill they passed in November 2022? And all the money that we just print out and give away. Guess who pays for all that, ladies and gentlemen? Not only do you pay in taxes, but you pay in higher prices, again, in the hidden tax, inflation.
The more I work, it seems like the more they take off of me. I know if I work an extra day or 2 extra days, what they take in federal income tax alone is almost doubled, because apparently it puts you in a higher income tax bracket and it takes more off you.
Bob Crawford lives with his wife and 3 children in a suburb of Pittsburgh. They're a fairly average American family.
Don't slam the door, Daphne.
Okay. All right.
What are you doing?
Making your favorite dish.
No.
We went to the Crawfords' home after he'd spent a couple of days working out his federal and state income taxes for the year. For our benefit, he tried to estimate all the other taxes he had paid as well. In the end, though, he didn't discover much that will surprise anybody.
Inflation is going up. Everything's getting more expensive. No matter what you do, as soon as you walk out of the house, everything's going up. Your gas bills keep going up, electric bills, your gasoline. You could name 1,000 things that are going up, but just everything's going sky high. your food. My wife goes to the grocery store. We used to live on, say, $60 or $50 every 2 weeks just for our basic food. Now it's $80 or $90 every 2 weeks. Things are just, they're going out of sight as far as expense to live on.
Did he just say $60 to $50 he used to pay a week for a family of 5 for groceries, and now it's $80 or $90? First of all, that's a big increase, but think about that. Why is it now $200, $300 a week for groceries for a family of 5? Whatever it is, you let me know in the comment section below what you're paying if you have a family of 4 or 5 or whatever, right? It's because of inflation. What happened was, now this is 1980. 1971, Richard Nixon took us off the gold standard on August 15, 1971. In other words, every single dollar before 1971, it started in 1944 with the Bretton Woods Agreement, because the United States became the world reserve currency. But I'll get into that in more videos, right? So from 1944 to 1971, we were the world reserve currency, and every dollar was supposed to be backed by gold. But what did we do as human beings? We decided to print more dollars than there was gold. And a lot of countries like, hey man, I need my gold, forget these dollars. So we decided to say, you know what? Tricky Dick, I call him. Tricky Dick said, nah, we're not going to do that. We're going to take, and he came on TV and made this big speech. If you don't ever seen it, here's a clip.
In recent weeks, the speculators have been waging an all-out war on the American dollar. The strength of a nation's currency is based on the strength of that nation's economy. And the American economy is by far the strongest in the world. Accordingly, I have directed the Secretary of the Treasury to take the action necessary to defend the dollar against the speculators. I have directed Secretary Connally to suspend temporarily the convertibility of the dollar into gold or other reserve assets, except in amounts and conditions determined to be in the interest of monetary stability and in the best interest of the United States.
And he basically lied to the American people and said, hey, you know what he said? And he lied. And he said temporarily, right? It's been 52 years since then. It's just been the anniversary, and it hasn't changed. About to be anniversary, 52 years. And he hasn't changed. He's not put us back on the gold standard. Why? Because these politicians, or politricians I call them, or these rich men north of Richmond decided, hey, we're going to print more money and we're going to line our pockets and everything else. Meanwhile, we're flipping the bill. That's why groceries and everything keeps going up. It's all a scam, ladies and gentlemen. And they don't want you to know about it.
Like I say, it's getting tough. And it seems like every month it gets worse and worse. And I don't know where it's going to end. At the end of the day, I've spent nearly $6,000 of my earnings on taxes. That leaves me with a total of $12,000 to live on. That might seem like a lot of money, but 5-6 years ago, I was earning $12,000.
So he used to make $12,000, which was pretty good money for him back in those days, back in late 70s. And now he's making $18,000 and can't make ends meet. And he's paying $6,000 in taxes. Now think about those numbers, guys. Imagine if me or you made $18,000 in today's prices. Again, man, it's not about the prices going up. There's so many dollars chasing the same amount or less goods with the supply chains going down. This is what they don't want you to know, ladies and gentlemen.
How does taxation without representation really affect how much the Crawford family has left to spend after it's paid its income taxes? Well, in 1972, Bob Crawford earned $12,000. Some of that income was not subject to income tax. After paying income tax on the rest, he had this much left to spend. 6 years later, he was earning $18,000 a year. By 1978, the amount free from tax was larger. But he was now in a higher tax bracket, so his taxes went up by a larger percentage than his income. However, those dollars weren't worth anything like as much. Even his wages, let alone his income after taxes, hadn't kept up with inflation. His buying power was lower than before. That is taxation without representation in practice.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is theft. That is outright theft. And these people don't give a damn about us. And this is why they don't teach you this in school. They'll tell you inflation, the price is going up. You got to pay your taxes. You got to be a good little boy or girl in school so you can get good grades, so you can get a good job, so you can go to a good college, and then you can work for me, pay your taxes, and barely live. And the farther and farther it goes, the worse and worse it gets for people like me and you.
The reason we have inflation in the United States, or for that matter, anywhere in the world, is because these pieces of paper and the accompanying book entry, or their counterparts in other nations, are growing more rapidly than the quantity of goods and services produced. The truth is, inflation is made in one place and one place only, here in Washington. This is the only place where there are presses like this that turn out these pieces of paper we call money. This is a place where the power resides to determine how rapidly the amount of money shall increase.
Yep, the rich men north of Richmond, the closer they are to that money printer, the more and more they make. They call them quintillionaires. My goodness, man.
What happened to all that noise? That's what would happen to inflation if we stopped letting the amount of money grow so rapidly. This is not a new idea. It's not a new cure. It's not a new problem. It's happened over and over again in history. Sometimes inflation has been cured this way on purpose. Sometimes it's happened by accident. During the Civil War, the North, late in the Civil War, overran the place in the South where the printing presses were setting up, where the pieces of paper were being turned out. Prior to that point, the South had had a very rapid inflation. If my memory serves me right, something like 4% a month. It took the Confederacy something over 2 weeks to find a new place where they could set up their printing presses and start them going again. During that 2-week period, inflation came to a halt. After the 2-week period, when the presses started running again, inflation started up again. It's that clear, that straightforward.
Yep, and let me ask you guys a question. Do you think the government is going to stop printing money? Absolutely not. In 2020, if you guys recall, remember all that free money we used to get? Remember the stimulus checks and the PPP loans and the unemployment checks and all the child care stuff and this, that, and that? Where do you think that money came from? It came right from that printing press. And guess who paid for it? Go back to my old videos, and I talked about it back in 2020, 2021. I said, look, this is a bad idea. How about this? Instead of giving away that stuff, how about you just not charge us any taxes and don't print the money? Just don't charge us taxes for 5 years. You think they're going to do that? No, because your best interest is not their best interest. They were making millions and billions of dollars, these big companies and stuff, because what happens when all this money comes into the system, all this new cash comes into the system? Because 97% of it is digital, and I'll get to that in a second. But what happens? Us as humans, we're stupid. We take the money and we don't buy hard money like this, silver or gold or Bitcoin or vintage silver. This stuff is constitutional silver. They're not making any more of this. They're not making any more Engelhard bars. I got 1996 American Eagles. I got some Libertads here. They won't give you that. And we won't spend it on that, most of the population, because they don't teach us about that. What are we spending on? Jordan sneakers. We'll buy into the stock market, this, that, and the third. That's why it looks like your stock is going up. It's not going up. It's just keeping up with the debasement of the currency, with the currency coming into the system. That's all it's doing. And guess who's getting richer? These big, huge companies, Amazon, this, that, and the third. They're getting all your money instead of us putting it into something like this. You can't save in cash. Why? Because if you save in cash, you're losing 7 to 15% of it every single year of the purchasing power. So what's the point? Milton Friedman talked about this in 1999. 19 years later after this, he was talking about a digital money that I'll get into in a minute, because I'm very involved with Bitcoin, not other cryptocurrencies. They call them altcoins. Us Bitcoin maxis call it shit coins. When we talk about cryptos and altcoins, Bitcoin is not, and I repeat, it is not crypto, even though it's labeled crypto. It is not crypto, and crypto is not Bitcoin. I'll teach you more about that. But listen to what Milton Friedman said in 1999 about the internet and digital money.
But I think a much more reliable source of optimism is the growth of the internet. In your area, the major effect of the internet will be to make it harder for government to collect taxes. Governments can collect taxes best on things that don't move. Land is an ideal basis of taxation because you can't take it away. Yep. The internet is going to make it very difficult to collect taxes on services of all kinds. So that I think that the internet is going to be one of the major forces for reducing the role of government. And the one thing that's missing, but that will soon be developed, is a reliable e-cash, a method whereby on the internet you can transfer funds from A to B without A knowing B or B knowing A. The way in which I can take a $20 bill and hand it over to you, and there's no record of where it came from. And you may get that without knowing who I am. And that kind of thing will develop on the internet, and that will make it even easier for people to use the internet.
What a forward-thinking person to know that, because the internet just came out a few years before that. But Bitcoin came out 10 years before this interview. This interview was 1999. Bitcoin didn't come out in 2000 till 2009, and it was invented by Satoshi Nakamoto. Here's the white paper for Bitcoin. And the reason it came out real quick is because of the housing and the housing crash and the Great Recession of 2008, when the banks got bailed out by the government by, of course, printing money, printing out back then I guess was pennies, hundreds of billions of dollars, and completely bailing them out, and we paid for it. And when the banks make mistakes, the government pays for it. And Satoshi Nakamoto said, well, you know what, we're going to create something, a money that can be transferred peer-to-peer with no third parties involved and without government interference. And it's, instead of being inflationary, it's deflationary, because there's only 21 million Bitcoin, ladies and gentlemen. That's it. So if you don't know what Bitcoin is, watch my videos and I'll have more series on that. Basically, it's a digital money that is capped at 21 million. There is 100 million Satoshis in a Bitcoin. You don't have to buy a whole Bitcoin. I know it looks like it's like 28, 29, 30,000. You don't have to buy it that much. You can buy $1, $2 and get some Satoshis. Again, 100 million Satoshis in one Bitcoin. As you can see on this table, guys, if they did a stimulus right now, said, hey, we're gonna, give out a bunch of free money, they can't give this stuff out because there's not enough to go around. This is a Johnson Matthey bar. This company is done. Engelhard is done. You see all these Engelhards. They're not making any more constitutional silvers anymore. This is the best money, in my opinion, constitutional, because it's written in the Constitution. They're not making any more. These are some Mercury dimes over here. Got some 1996s. Like I said, American Eagles. This right here is a really special piece to me. This is Nathaniel Rochester, 1984. Rochester, New York, that's where I'm from. It's a 150-year anniversary in 1984 of Rochester. But yeah, Johnson Matthey, they're not making any more of this stuff, guys. And that's why I love Bitcoin, because even though I do love my silver as a good hedge against inflation and investment for the future, because we need silver and everything, there's 10,000 uses of it, we're not going to pass silver back and forth. We're in a digital age, ladies and gentlemen. And the central bank digital currencies are coming. And stay tuned, probably for my next video, I'll talk about the CBDCs and the next breakdown of this great song, one of the lyrics on there. I will teach you about the control they're trying to get over us on these central bank digital currencies. Bitcoin is the way, ladies and gentlemen. It's the future, and it's coming, whether you like it or not, and everybody's going to buy it. What you see right here, these are cold storages. That's the Ledger Nano X. This is the Trezor Model T. This is the Blockstream Jade, and this is the daddy of all cold storages, and that's the Cold Card. When you buy Bitcoin, you can buy it on an exchange and then put it over into your own self-custody. But again, we'll get more into that later. But let's wrap this up, guys. Long story short, now you know why when you work really, really hard, you're not getting anything out of it, because it's by design. They want us to depend on the government. That's why they want a bigger government. That's why a lot of the Democrats, Republicans are not good either, because they spend a lot too, but the Democrats want a big government, so they'll give you the stimulus checks or UBI, a universal basic income, or something to depend on them. And we shouldn't have to do that. We shouldn't have to depend on food stamps and all this other stuff like he said in that song. We should be buying stuff on our own merit, but they can't because they design us not to. And that's the problem. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. I need you guys' help. I really appreciate you guys subscribing and everything else, but I want to get this message out to everybody. So please share this video. I want to get this video in particular to 10,000 views, because I want a lot of people to understand it and learn it. I want you to watch this video over and over again so you can understand it, but send it to your friends and family. Put it on your Facebook, on your Twitter, please. Again, the message is not about me. It's about what's going on here. It's all about the message, man. And we need to wake these people up. Every single person needs Bitcoin. Bitcoin is freedom, ladies and gentlemen. I read the United States Constitution every day. I read the Declaration of Independence every day. And if you read the Bitcoin white paper and what it's about, not only is Bitcoin the hardest, best invention ever, and it's the hardest money in the world, it's the only thing that's going to give us freedom, ladies and gentlemen, because our money is very important and we have to buy Bitcoin as a saving technology for right now. We can spend it later. So hopefully after you're watching this video, now you know why you've been selling your soul and working so hard. Like you said, bullshit pay. Also, why your dollar ain't shit. I love each and every one of you, and I'll talk to you soon. Peace and love, guys.